Namaste. Today is the 30th day of July 2022, and we are doing the synthesis of yoga with our beloved Ranga. We are on page 43, beginning with the line in the second paragraph. We have in this central tantric conception.
So, our classes are once a week, and we are likely to forget what we have read, or at least we lose the context. So, I'll give you the summary of what he has said in the previous para so that we get the sense of continuity. So, what he has said in the previous para is that all the traditional yogas in India, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga. Jnana Yoga, yoga of knowledge. Bhakti Yoga, yoga of devotion and love. Karma Yoga, of action and works. Whatever work you do, you have to offer to the Lord. Are all in essence leaning towards knowledge. Though in Bhakti Yoga, it is knowledge through the heart and love. And in the Karma Yoga, it is knowledge through the will. In any case, they are Vedic in origin and pursue the Purusha, the consciousness aspect. But Tantra goes directly in the opposite direction. It proceeds by invoking the Shakti aspect, not the consciousness aspect, the power aspect, the dynamic energy of the divine, not the static self. Tantra does not, like the other three, move away from the physical world, but rather boldly encountering the difficulties, conquers them. It seeks mastery and perfection of Prakriti. Prakriti is nature, individual nature as well as universal nature. But ultimately, it fell victim to the great difficulties of that chosen path and succumbed often enough to the weaknesses of the outer human nature. But it is still valid as a system if practiced rightly and with great discipline. So this is what he says about Tantra. Now, we will read what he has to say now. We have in this central tantric conception one side of the truth, the worship of the energy, the Shakti, as the sole effective force for all attainment. We get the other extreme in the Vedantic conception of the Shakti as a power of illusion, and in the search after the silent inactive Purusha as the means of liberation from the deceptions created by the active energy. But in the integral conception, the conscious soul is the Lord. The nature soul is his executive energy. Purusha is of the nature of Sat, the being of conscious self-existence, pure and infinite. Shakti or Prakriti is of the nature of Chit. It is power of the Purusha's self-conscious existence, pure and infinite. The relation of the two exists between the two poles of rest and action. When the energy is absorbed in the bliss of conscious self-existence, there is rest. When the Purusha pours itself out in the action of its energy, there is action, creation, and the enjoyment or ananda of becoming. But if Ananda is the creator and begetter of all becoming, its method is tapas, or force of the Purusha's consciousness dwelling upon its own infinite potentiality in existence and producing from it truths of conception or real ideas, vijnana, which, proceeding from an omniscient and omnipotent self-existence, have the surety of their own fulfillment and contain in themselves the nature and law of their own becoming in the terms of mind, life, and matter. The eventual omnipotence of tapas and the infallible fulfillment of the idea are the very foundation of all yoga. In man, we render these terms by will and faith. A will that is eventually self-effective because it is of the substance of knowledge, and a faith that is the reflection in the lower consciousness of a truth or real idea, yet unrealized in the manifestation.
Reflection or reflex?
In the pardon?
Reflex or reflection?
Is the reflex.
Oh, okay.
I have the reflex, yeah. Is a reflex of the lower consciousness of a truth or real idea, yet unrealized in the manifestation. It is this self-certainty of the idea which is meant by the Gita when it says, Yo yat shraddha saeva saha. Whatever is a man's faith or the sure idea in him, that he becomes. So, he has condensed 3-4 chapters into this one para.
Yeah.
So it's quite complicated, but we'll try to give as briefly as possible what he's saying. We'll go through each sentence and see what he's saying. But before we go into the details of what he's saying here, some basic ideas must be there, otherwise there will be confusion. So, before there is any manifestation, there is the divine. You can call it Satchidananda, you can call it spirit, you can call it whatever you want. But the ideas differ. The divine for us is, it can be personal, it can be impersonal. In the Vedantic system, it is impersonal. Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda. Its nature is Sat, substance, truth if you want, Chit, consciousness, Shakti, force, and Ananda, bliss. This is its nature. At the highest level, when it is unmanifest, it is static. Absolutely static, immutable, infinite, eternal.
No creation.
No creation before that. Then, when it wants to create, it creates through the supermind, and that is his power of manifesting the unmanifest. So, that, how does it proceed? The formless becomes form, and the creative agent is the supermind. The supermind is the one that enables this unmanifest to become manifest, the infinite to become finite, the immutable to become mutable. So you have absolute immutability and static rest at the highest level. You have complete, constant, non-stop action, movement and power in the lower field. In the physical world, if you see, there is constant vibration and movement. You feel that matter is static, but it is not. You go down to the atomic level, there is an energy whirling around. So everything in this physical world, the character is mutability. At the highest level, immutability. Okay? So if you keep this clearly in our head, many things will become clear. I am reading each sentence. We have in the central tantric conception one side of the truth, the worship of the energy, the Shakti, as the sole effective force for all attainment. The energy of the Shakti becomes Prakriti here, nature. Okay? And consciousness there becomes a self. We'll go into that a little detail later on. But the self is a consciousness which is infinite, eternal, static, immutable. Perfect because it doesn't need to change, it's perfect. So it is, doesn't need to change, no evolution there at all, no movement at all. So that is static and this is dynamic. The static can be considered consciousness, the dynamic can be considered Shakti force.
Then why is it said that nature is working unconsciously?
Because consciousness, see, this is the thing, that every time we say something, you have to explain again, and that explanation will require another explanation and another explanation. That's why a total picture is always necessary. Now, although it is true that at the highest level, there is consciousness and there is force, and it is static, when it comes down, the one becomes the many.
Right.
So the one becoming the many, consciousness and force separate themselves and become different. But they are always in touch with each other, but they are inversely proportional to each other. Inversely proportional. So in matter, if you say that energy is there, consciousness is there sleeping.
Good.
So it is there. Now, in the evolution, consciousness slowly rises out of this. It is Shakti which has absorbed and swallowed consciousness and kept it under its control in matter. But consciousness is divine and it cannot remain imprisoned. So it wants to come out. But it comes out with some difficulty. So slow evolution. Out of matter comes life. Out of life again comes out mind. And this will continue forever until you reach the highest level. Okay? So this is, but when it is coming out, consciousness is slowly emerging, and as it emerges, consciousness taking over from Shakti. And when you reach the self, which is the second level, I have to explain again first level and second level. The first level is what Srimad calls the lower hemisphere. Matter, life and mind. This is what evolution has until now been able to create. We have matter, we have life and we have mind. But we don't have yet the manifestation of the higher planes has not yet taken place. So, when consciousness is evolving and it rises to above the mind, consciousness becomes full and Shakti is held back. So, this is the play of Purusha and Prakriti. At the lowest level, consciousness is prisoner of matter, prisoner of energy.
Yes.
And at the level of the self, which is the spiritual planes of consciousness has held Shakti in its grip. That's why it is immutable. Here it is mutable. So, although both are there, they are inversely proportional to each other.
But when you say Shakti is held back.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Think of the water behind the dam.
Mm-hmm.
It is static.
Yes.
But does it mean to say there is no energy? It's held back. Take the athletes on their track. On your marks, get set, and then the gun fires. When they are there, they are static. Can you say there is no energy? They are full of energy, but static.
Very good.
Okay? So that's the nature of the in here. But at there, it's the opposite. It is consciousness which is complete, but energy is held back.
I'm still a little bit questionable about being held back.
Okay.
Evolution, for example.
Srivda uses the word is absorbed. Consciousness gets absorbed into energy.
Okay. And then rises out of it.
Yes. As I told you, it's like a Russian doll. Okay?
Yeah.
There is the doll, and inside the same doll, inside the same doll. Or if you want, like a collapsible telescope. So, matter contains life, and life contains mind, and mind contains all the other planes of consciousness inside, but it's like pressed down. But they are potentially there, but they have not yet the power to come out. After a lot of struggle, they come out a little bit. This is evolution. Okay? So, when you come to so level 1, matter, life, mind. Level 2, the spiritual planes of consciousness, where the soul is not trapped in the body. It escapes, comes out, and feels itself to be free. This is level 2. The higher mind, the element mind, the intuitive mind, and the overmind. Level 2. But here also there is a problem, because you still see consciousness and Shakti separately. You see the physical world, but you also see the consciousness, the spirit. But they don't seem to have any connection. They are too different. So you go to the third level, which is the supramental, and everything becomes one.
Beautifully said.
So this is what has to be understood, and then now when we read this, we'll understand what he's saying. So at the lower level, some people go through consciousness, some people are going through energy, wanting to reach the top. It's like taking two staircases. One takes this stair and one takes that one. The Vedic systems, our Indian traditional system, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Raj Yoga, Hatha Yoga, are all knowledge-based, consciousness-based. But the Tantra is energy-based, Prakriti, nature-based, energy-based, Shakti-based. So that's a difference between the two. With this background, we start reading the paragraph. We have in this central tantric conception one side of the truth. That is the Shakti aspect. Worship of the energy. They actually worship it. The Shakti as the sole effective force for all attainment. We will go through the energy aspect of the divine. And you worship the Divine Mother. This is one thing special in the Indian system, the feminine aspect of the divine. The feminine aspect of the divine is not so clearly defined in the other systems. There is, in Christianity, you have the Mother Mary.
Virgin Mary,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
You have that. But it doesn't exactly correspond to this. Okay, it's not the Shakti aspect. So, this is what Tantra is concentrating on, the energy aspect. We get the other extreme in the Vedantic conception of the Shakti as a power of illusion, and in search after the silent inactive Purusha as a means of liberation from the deceptions created by the active energy. It will require a lot of explanation, but we'll make it as simple as possible. We get the other extreme in the Vedantic conception of the Shakti. The Shakti is the power of illusion. So, at the highest level, there is truth, consciousness, force, energy. But as the manifestation takes place, there is a diminution. Why is there diminution? Again, we have to explain. Very briefly, I will tell you. The one becomes the many. When a manifestation implies limitation always. Why? Suppose you have a huge amount of clay. You are a potter. Okay? The pots and pans are inherent in that clay. But you have to give them form. You have to manifest them. So what do? You take a little bit of clay and give it a form. So when you are taking a little bit and giving it a form, manifestation implies limitation. Limitation implies lack of fullness. So limitation implies imperfection. So when you are manifesting something, there is necessarily to be a limitation. And limitation of consciousness taken to the extreme limit becomes unconsciousness. Shakti taken at the extreme lowest level, okay, loses its power. There it is full power. Here it is a hidden power. It is there, but it has to be extracted. Ananda is absolutely, at the highest level, completely self-existent. But it loses itself it doesn't seem to be here in the physical world. It is there hiding behind the forms, but it is hidden. So this idea we have to keep in mind. So now what he is saying is, the two conceptions are different. In the Vedantic conception of the Shakti as a power of illusion, so what happens is, when you are in your normal consciousness of the human nature, your soul, you are not conscious of your soul. It is trapped in your body, mind, life. Okay? You are not conscious of the soul. And you see everything and you think it is real. This screen is real, my computer is real, you are real sitting there, the watch you are wearing is real, everything is real. But when you go out of your body, mind, life and go to the second level of the spiritual planes of consciousness, you start seeing that these are only forms. They are not the infinite clay. They are only a pot. So the pot is representative of the infinite clay. That's what you see when you go to level 2. So the clay has become the pot. So the pot is only the form. I'm not saying the clay which is the reality. So it's an illusion. So illusion means, and what happens? You start actually seeing it as unreal. Okay. Again, we have to explain how it becomes unreal. Okay. So again, I told you it will take a lot of explanation. Nah?
Fine.
Now, at our level, how are we experiencing the physical world? Through our senses. If the senses don't exist for me, the world doesn't exist for me. Very clear. I don't have eyes, I don't have ears, I don't have my 5 senses. There is no world for me at all. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. So now, I am using my eyes, I am using my ears, I am using my nose, tongue and my touch. But is that all? If I have senses, can I experience the world? No, I can't. So, there are nerves that carry the sensations, the data, the sense data that the senses are collecting from the physical world. They are channeled to the head office, to the brain, and through nerves. And the brain is interpreting the images that you are seeing. So, an image falls on my retina, but that data, sense data, is carried to the brain, and it is the brain is telling you what you are seeing. What you are seeing is not the world. What you are seeing is an image in your mind. Convincing? Okay. So now, proof is the brain has to be programmed to be able to interpret the images. Take a newborn baby. All his senses are alive. He can see his mother, he can hear the language they are saying, he can understand everything. He understands nothing. The brain has not yet been programmed. So, this part of the brain, it's called the manas, the physical mind. It is the mind that interprets the images coming to you. Now, suppose the mind falls, suppose the senses are not there, no world. Suppose the nerves get damaged, no world. If the optic nerve gets damaged, I don't see. And if the brain, that part of the brain which is interpreting your image, says, I want to go on a holiday, I don't want to work anymore, you will see the physical world is only the data, the sense data. No meaning. Clear?
Mm-hmm.
See, this is very similar to the process of the satellite images. Okay? America started this game of going into satellites and taking pictures of all the enemy territory. Okay? But it is 100 miles from up or 300 miles from up, you get an image, a satellite image. Now, what do you see in the satellite image? Do you see details? No, because the resolution is maximum 1 meter, not more than that. So you don't see details. So I may see a line like that. Now, I am only seeing a line. So somebody has to interpret these images. There are people who interpret. They are trained for this. If you and I see these satellite images, I will understand nothing at all. So they will be able to tell you, oh, this line is a road. No, this line is a river. No, this line is a pipeline. They will be able to interpret the images. So when your mind stops working, the interpretation is gone. That's a silent mind. So you see the physical world as only images without any substance. Without substance. Only shadow forms. That's why it is illusion.
And this silent mind, I have been told that Tanmaya had it for 10 years. And someone else had it for 2 years, and he almost went crazy. Because everything is so silent.
That's what happened to the Sri Tamil teacher also. The Sri was experiencing, and he was experimenting with his own power, and he was transferring his experience to others. So he gave the silent mind to his Tamil teacher. And the fellow came running. He didn't understand the value of that. Okay? So he came running to Sri and says, "Sir, I have become an idiot. I am unable to think. Thought is not there anymore. It is silent." Okay? So Sri said, I let him lose his magnificently acquired silent mind, and I thought to myself that he has not become a fool. He already was a fool not to understand the magnificent condition that I had put him in. Okay? So this is the... Now, there is another thing that we have to see. Just as there are laws, different laws in different countries, okay, the laws in India are not the same as in America, not the laws as in UK. Okay, in Sweden they allow drugs. Here we don't allow drugs. We put them in jail. But in Singapore they don't put them in jail. They execute them. So laws go on differing in different countries. Now, the material world the material plane is a world. The life plane is a world. The mental plane is a world. Higher mind world, intuitive mind world, illumined mind world, these are all worlds. Laws goes on changing. Rules go on changing. So what I am seeing here, I won't see the same thing in the higher plane of consciousness. So here I am seeing the physical world is absolutely real. In the second level of the spiritual planes of consciousness, I see them as unreal. So this is the basis of the Mayavada philosophy. And it is valid up to that level. But if you go slightly higher up again it changes. But this is something not... you can understand it very well, because that's exactly what Einstein says also in the physical world. Your perception of the world depends upon the frame in which you are, the frame of reference. Okay? It's possible to see something differently when you are in a different frame of reference. XYZ. Okay? So, I'll give you 2 examples, it will be very clear. If I keep a thin wire at horizontal level, what will I see? I will see a point. I won't see the wire. But if I go up, I'll see the wire. The same thing can be seen in 2 different ways. That is the reason why the internet is full of illusions. They create illusions. So that's the reason. Another thing, our senses are defective. Our senses are defective. I don't see ultraviolet. I don't see infrared. So I'm not seeing the reality. I don't hear the sounds that dogs can hear or red Indians. And I don't hear the high-pitched sounds that bats can hear. I don't hear. So my senses are giving me very, very incomplete data of the physical world. Yet we think that what we are seeing is the truth. Okay? So, this is the Mayavada theory. So, as laws goes on changing, every time you go into one place, the laws change. The physical world is real for me here. You go to the spiritual planes of consciousness, the world is not real anymore. You go to the 3rd level, again it becomes real, but in a different way. Okay? So, I'll give you another example to show you how the same thing can be seen in different ways. I am sitting in a train, and the train is moving. Okay? I am playing with a ball. I take a ball in my hand and throw it up. It comes down to my hand. What is the movement of the ball for me in the train moving at 30 miles an hour? Vertical. It's vertical. Now, someone on this platform is seeing the train moving Okay, not 30 miles, maybe 5 miles an hour. And he sees this boy playing with a ball. What will be the movement of the ball for him? Will it be vertical? No.
Horizontal.
It can't be. It will be like this.
Yes.
Because the end is moving.
Yes.
So the same phenomena can be seen in many different ways depending on the frame of reference. This is what Einstein is saying. Even in the physical world, it's like that. That is the reason why he gives that example of the two twins. One twin is on Earth and the other twin goes out into space, okay? Nearly at this, not speed of light, but anyway, he goes and he comes back after 2 years. But he has come back after 2 years. Here on Earth, 50 years has gone and his twin brother has died. That's a theory of relativity. So this is the theory of relativity. It is 10 times more striking in the spiritual world. That's what, with this background, you'll be able to understand what he's saying now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, so we have in the central tantric conception one side of the truth, the worship of the energy, the Shakti, as the sole effective force for all attainment. I have chosen to go through the energy aspect. We get the other extreme in the Vedantic conception of the Shakti as a power of illusion. When I make my mind silent and go to the second level, I am seeing the physical world as illusion. Okay? So if I go through consciousness, I have to make my mind silent. And when I make my mind silent, my soul, my consciousness comes out, trapped in the body-mind life, it comes out and sees the physical world as illusion. Not always, but 90% of the time. Okay? Srem the Sight is illusion. He's got so many sonnets on that. Okay? So, then when you keep climbing from the higher mind to the illumined mind to the intuitive mind to the overmind, again you start seeing things in a different way. Because again, laws are different in each plane of consciousness. Okay? So, when you go to if you go through the consciousness aspect, you will see at one time in the second level, you will see the physical world as illusion. We also spoke of the Shakti losing its power and coming down. So, in the second level, you will see that the divine power is creating illusions. But you go to the third level, you see that the divine is not creating illusions, but you are experiencing them as illusions here. Okay? So when you go to the third level, Shakti becomes a divine power. Not a creator of illusions, a creator of real worlds. So as it keeps coming down, your views of things goes on changing, your experience also goes on changing. Very broadly, you can speak of 3 levels. Level 1, the physical world, matter, life, mind. Level 2, the higher planes of consciousness, which you can call them the spiritual planes of consciousness. You can call them also the ideal planes. Srimdo calls them the ideal planes. And the third level is the supermind, where all these contradictions and all these relativities become very, very understandable.
So even in section 2, the higher mind would be...
The higher mind is in the second level.
Yeah.
The lowest level of the second
lowest level of the second level,
yeah.
Right.
So higher mind, slightly above that is the illumined mind, slightly above that is the intuitive mind, and then the overmind. And then you jump into the third level, the supermind. This also we are saying climbing higher and higher, this is also relative. Because in those worlds, there is nothing higher and lower. Even on earth, there is nothing higher and lower. If I am standing on the North Pole, my higher is this way. And let that fellow stand on the South Pole. What will be his higher? The opposite. So there is really no higher and lower. It's our way of understanding things. It helps to understand things. Okay? So this is what he's saying. When you go to the second level, you see the physical world as unreal. Okay? Power of illusion. And in the search after the silent, inactive Purusha, okay, there is the higher mind level, as a means of liberation from the deceptions created by the active energy. The active energy, the Shakti, is creating forms, and here you are seeing them as unreal forms. That's a Mayavada. This is in the consciousness aspect. But when you are going through the Shakti aspect, it's not like that. It's a different thing. So he says, but in the integral conception, now he comes to the integral conception. Okay? So, how does Sri Aurobindo see it? The integral conception, the conscious soul is the Lord. The nature soul is his executive energy. There is a huge chapter in the Life Divine, 45 pages, Brahman Purusha Ishvara Maya Prakriti Shakti. So, when you are in the second level, you are in the Brahman consciousness, you are in the immutable consciousness, the world is unreal for you. Okay? You see the movement below, but you are in the non-movement, you are in the immutability. You go to the higher, next level, you start seeing things in a different way. So as you keep on growing, when you are in the Brahman consciousness, the world is Maya, illusion. When you are in the Purusha consciousness, the world becomes mechanical energy, not illusion anymore. It becomes only mechanical energy. The river is flowing, no consciousness, mechanical. The wind is blowing, mechanical. When in one level. When you are in the Purusha consciousness, this becomes Prakriti. When you become the master at the third level, this is your own power and you are using your own power to create. Okay? So that 45 pages he takes to explain this. Brahman Purusha Ishvara Maya Prakriti Shakti. So, he goes into great detail to explain, that's why it's a little tricky. So, now it's clear. So, as a means of liberation from the deceptions created by the activity. The deceptions are created at level 2. But in the integral conception of the conscious soul is the Lord. This is at the highest level, the conscious soul is always the Lord. And the nature soul is his executive energy. Mm-hmm. I am the Lord, Chit, but the energy is not separate from me, it's my own energy. I am creating. But at each level, you will see it in a different way. Again, we can give another example to understand why we have to see things in a different way. There is the manifestation, there is the physical world is there. No? Even at our level, there is a physical world. And there is a consciousness which is perceiving that. Now that consciousness can be a worm, it can be a cat, it can be an animal. There is consciousness looking at the world. It can be a man, it can be a yogi. So, there is a world and there is a consciousness looking at the world. Each one is looking at it in a different way. How is he looking in a different way? Because there is an object and there is a subject. And the subject is experiencing the object through instruments of knowledge. I have to use instruments to know. Man is using instruments of the senses. And they are imperfect. Okay? When you go to the higher level, you use different instruments. When you go to the highest level, you don't use instruments at all because you become the one and you are yourself what you are creating.
And everything is an expression of you.
Subject and object become one. That's knowledge by identity. Even in the physical world, we have to use different instruments for seeing different levels. If I want to see the physical world, I use my senses. Okay? I want to see the largest stars in the universe. Can I use my senses? I can't. I have to change the instrument of knowledge. So what's that instrument? I use a telescope.
Telescope, yes.
I use the Hubble telescope, even better. Okay? I want to see the atomic particles. Can I use a telescope? No. Can I use my senses? No. What do I use? I use a microscope. I use an electronic microscope. It becomes even more I can see. So depending on what you want to see at which level, your instruments of knowledge go on changing. And the instruments being defective, you see defective, your conclusion is defective. Right?
Yes.
So, this is what he's saying here in very hidden manner. That's why reading Srivamnu, you have to read this, you have to read that, and then slowly, the jigsaw puzzle gets filled up, and then you see the whole picture. Takes a little time. So,
Well, we've done 2 or 3 sentences so far.
yeah. But if we read further, we won't understand what is meaning unless we have a full picture.
Exactly.
That's why I went into details too.
Sure.
So, but in the integral conception, Srivamnu is saying, I am not limiting myself to level 1 and level 2. I am saying I want to go to level 3. There is the one divine, and he is the master, he is a conscious soul, and the power is his own power. So I will see it in that way. That's his conception. Okay? So Purusha is of the nature of Sat. Now, we have to understand this. Sat in Sanskrit is the present participle of the root as, to be, to exist. So Sat is existing. Okay? So, now I will give it a little twist. So what exists is the truth. So Sat can be spoken of and translated as truth. Because what which exists is the truth. What doesn't exist is the falsehood. Right? So, Sat is truth. But we can put another interpretation on it also. That which exists at the physical level, which is the most strikingly existing in the physical level? Matter. So, now matter can also take different levels. Okay? It can become ice, it can become water, it can become water vapor. The same thing taking 3 different levels. So, substance also can be gross substance, subtlest of substance. So, at the highest level, Sat is substance, but subtle. Okay? And that is consciousness. Consciousness is a substance. Don't think that consciousness is something abstract and vague. It is a consciousness. When that consciousness reduces itself, it becomes matter. Matter is consciousness sleeping. So you can see it in that way. Okay? So now he is explaining. He is saying, Purusha is the nature of Sat. Okay? Consciousness and is Sat. The being of conscious existence, pure and infinite. That's why Srivamnu uses the word existence. When he uses the word existence, it's at the highest level, the subtlest. When he uses the word substance, he uses it in the more gross sense. So, his use of words also we must become very clear, because then we understand. Sometimes he's saying substance, sometimes he's saying existence. So what is that we have to see. Okay? So Purusha is the nature of Sat, the being of conscious self-existence, pure and infinite. The words pure and infinite suggest absolutely only one. There cannot be a second, because the second is impure. So pure and infinite suggests oneness. Shakti or Prakriti is of the nature of Chit. Okay? It is consciousness which has got power. It is the power of the Purusha's self-conscious existence, pure and infinite. So, these sentences here, it means that at the highest level, consciousness is a substance. That substance is conscious. It is also got the power. There is also a power in it. And there is also bliss. They are all one. Very difficult for the human mind to understand that how these things can be one. So, that's why we can make the children understand. That's what I tell the children. Okay, I tell them, think of a granite block. It is substance. Okay, but this granite block is conscious of itself. And it has also got power to mold itself into anything it wants. It can make itself into an image of Buddha, it can make itself into an image of Rama by its own will. And it enjoys what it is doing. This is Satchidananda. Now, think of that granite block as subtle. Then you understand what he's saying. Okay? So, Purusha is the nature of Sat, the being of conscious self-existence, pure and infinite. Shakti or Prakriti is of the nature of Chit. It is the power of the Purusha's self-conscious existence, pure and infinite. The relation of the two exists between the two poles of rest and action. Level 2, the consciousness is at rest. It is immutable, static. Therefore, there is no power. Power is there, held back. In the physical world, there is dynamism. So, there is the word action. So, in matter, at the lower level, there is action, but consciousness is sleeping. And this level 2, power is sleeping, consciousness is fully there. At level 3, both are equal to each other. Between level 1 and level 2, they are inversely proportional to each other. In that's why Siddhartha says that each level of existence, the relation between Purusha and Prakriti changes. If you want to understand this more concretely, you can say that in matter, consciousness is 0.001%. Force is 99.99%. Why should it not be 100%? Because if it is 100%, then consciousness will become 0%. And if it is 0%, it can never emerge. So it is involved in it. Mm-hmm. And the involution hiding is 0%, to explain that way. So at the other level, at the level 2, power is 0.001% and consciousness is 99.99%. So it changes. They're inversely proportional to each other. But at the highest level, they're equal to each other. You can't say that consciousness is superior to matter, Shakti, and you can't say that Shakti is superior to consciousness. They're equal to each other. That's why in our Indian iconography, we have the Ardhanarishwara, half man, half woman. That's at the highest level, consciousness and force. The female aspect and the male aspect are all one. They are not two. That's what he's explaining in this para. So somebody goes to the Shakti aspect, somebody goes to the consciousness aspect. Both are valid. Okay? So, now we come to Sri Aurobido's idea. Okay? So he says, the relation between the two, the poles of rest and action. When the energy is absorbed in the bliss of conscious existence, there is rest. So when you go to the second level, you make your mind silent, there is rest. There is immutability. No movement at all. Okay? Then the other one, when the Purusha pours himself out in action, in the action of its energy, there is action, creation, enjoyment. Level 1, at the physical level. Or ananda of becoming. But if now he is going into something else. But if ananda is the creator and the begetter of all becoming, its method is tapas or force of the Purusha's consciousness dwelling upon its own infinite potentiality. So he is saying, how is creation done? He is explaining. Creation is done in this way. He is saying, its method is tapas or force of the Purusha's consciousness dwelling upon its own infinite potentiality in existence. So, tapas is, you can translate as heat. You can translate as concentration. Because when you concentrate something, heat is produced. Even in the physical world, when I compress a gas, there is heat that is produced. And that's how the refrigerator works. You take that gas, which is natural gas, and you compress it, it becomes liquid. And then you circulate this liquid through the pipes. and it tries to get back to its gaseous state, and it absorbs all the heat from there and becomes gas. So this is so tapas is heat and also concentration, both. When you concentrate, there is heat produced even in the physical body. When you concentrate, there is a heat that is produced. That's how the solar energy works. The solar energy is diluted. You concentrate it, it demands tremendous heat, and you can use that heat. The solar kitchen in Orville works on that basis. The diluted form is concentrated, and concentrated produces heat. So the same thing happens at the physical level also. And this heat purifies. Heat always purifies. Take iron ore, slag, heat it. The slag comes out and the pure iron comes out. Heat is always purifying. Hot water makes much cleaner than cold water.
So it's Agni force?
Yes. And it's a purifying force.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Actually, yogis will feel the heat in their own body. They feel the heat when they concentrate. That's what he's saying. Now he's saying how the creation takes place. But if Ananda is a creator and begetter, by the way, there was a difference of opinion between Sri Aurobindo and Paul Richard. They had a discussion once, and Paul Richard says that the physical world is created because of desire. And Sri Aurobindo said, no, it is Ananda.
Yes.
It is Ananda that creates
And
the
he
world.
reiterates it many times in Savitri. This world was created for bliss, by bliss.
Yes. And also, the reverse also is true. When you create something, there is Ananda. Even in the creation of a painting, the painter will enjoy what he is doing. An inventor, when he creates something, he is going to enjoy what he is doing. A musician, when he is creating music, will enjoy what he is doing. So, creation gives enjoyment. When a child is born, he is created, there is tremendous enjoyment in the family. So, it's always, but at the other end, it is Ananda that creates. So the relation between creation and Ananda is very strong. Okay, so, see, but if Ananda is the creator and begetter of all becoming, now, the becoming and being, these are the two opposites. Level 2, when the mind is silent, it is being, it is static. And that being starts becoming here in the physical world, level 1. Okay? So when you say becoming, you mean constant, non-stop action. And when you speak of being, it is non-stop, eternal immutability. No change at all. Okay? So, but if Ananda is the creator and begetter of all becoming, its method is tapas. By concentration it creates, or force of the Purusha's consciousness, dwelling upon its own infinite potentiality in existence and producing from it truths of conception or real ideas, vijnana, which proceeding from an omniscient and omnipotent self-existence have the surety of their own fulfillment and contain in themselves the nature and law of their own becoming in the terms of mind, life and matter. Now he has introduced the idea of real idea. Now we'll have to, that I will get read the explanation. Real idea with an I cap. So,
which is synonymous with Gnostic,
yes.
Gnosis and Supermind.
Yes. So, what does he mean by real idea? You have to see. Even again, we give a concrete example in the physical world, it becomes easy to understand. I am an architect. Someone comes to me and says, I want a building of this, build over so much, and I want 3 floors or 4 floors. I design the building. How do I design? Do I start building the building straight away? No. I make a plan. And the plan is first in my mind. Then I make a drawing. And when I start building, I will do exactly what I have in mind. Okay? But in the physical world, I may not be able to stick to my original plan because I may fall short of material, I may fall short of labor, I may fall short of money, I may fall short of time, but it's possible that I can execute exactly what I've planned. Okay? That's possible. But it may not always succeed. In the supermind, the blueprint of what has been designed, I want to make this, is real. It is exactly what happens in the physical world. That's why he calls it a real idea. It's a blueprint of all that is going to be created in the physical world. So that's what. So in the supermind, level 3, all the blueprints of I'm going to create this, I'm going to create that, I'm going to create this. It's only a plan, but it gets executed in the physical world. I'll make a mango tree, it gets executed. I'll make an apple tree, it gets executed. Okay? I'll make a cat, I'll make a dog, it all gets executed. In fact, they say, there is a very clear statement, the archetype of everything in the physical world is in heaven. That's what it meant.
Yes.
The archetype is the blueprint, the plan.
Yes, he says about the lotus, don't try to understand it growing in the mud,
Yes.
but by its archetype
That's right.
in heaven.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay? So that's what he's saying. The creation takes place by the real idea, and then it is executed by concentration. With concentration only you can create, otherwise you can't. So, producing them from truths of conception and real ideas, which proceeding from an omniscient and omnipotent self-existence. It has got consciousness and it's got power. If it had only power, power can create, but creation will be chaotic. There has to be a consciousness which is guiding that force. So, it has to have both. It has to have consciousness and it must have power, force. Okay? To summarize very shortly, he is giving a phrase from the Gita. Yo yas shraddha sayavasa. Yaha yat shraddha, the faith in what you have. Sa eva sa. What the faith, what you have. Same is translating. Whatever is in a man's faith, or the sure idea in him, that he becomes.
And again, capitalized idea.
Absolutely. So, consciousness, Srivada says in synthesis later on, has got 3 powers, if you use it correctly. Consciousness can know anything it wants, but it has to concentrate, then it will be able to do it. It can acquire anything it wants, and it can become anything it wants. So these are the 3 powers of the consciousness. This is what is meant also by, nowadays all sports teams, they have psychologists attending to them. And what's the purpose? Exactly this. Believe in yourself. Have faith in yourself. And you will succeed. That's the same principle in yoga. So that's what this one chapter, one paragraph, so many things are hidden and you have to understand a different thing, then you come to know what he's saying.
Thank you, Ranga. Thank you.
Okay.